Police have threatened Tommy Robinson and said that if we, as the media, tell the truth about what has happened in Southport, he will face reprisals. Doesn't this now just feel like he's a hostage? Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe, but more importantly, hit the bell notification icon. It's the best way to absolutely guarantee you get all my videos as soon as they are released. Well. We have been complaining for some time about this ludicrous situation in which a Category D civil offender ends up in a prison in solitary confinement, his own, it's not called a wing, but his own corridor to himself of what is it, 8, 9, 10 prison cells kept away from other prisoners, effectively like a political prisoner you might have found in the Soviet Union. And I wondered why the authorities were so keen to keep Tommy Robinson in those conditions. Well, now we've found out. Maya Tuzi and others are reporting something that has come directly from the Tommy Robinson prison cell, and that is this. On the 20th of January, the trial of Axel Ruder-Cabana begins. Now, I'm going to tell you that I, along with almost every journalist in the country, has been contacted by people purporting to act for the families of the victims of the Southport attack, who've said that they've been bullied by the police into not admitting the truth about what took place, a truth that is so radioactive that the police are desperate to ensure that nobody talks about it. Remember, they use Take Out the Trash Day. Just to remind you what Take Out the Trash Day is, it's a day where political news will be buried because of other news going on. So they waited for the night before the budget, the Merseyside police did, before they announced that Axel Ruder-Cabana was facing terrorism charges. But of course they said, despite him having an Al-Qaeda training manual allegedly, despite him having ricin allegedly, because the theory was that he was not motivated by terrorism, he is therefore not a terrorist, something that I've described as a pile of shite before, and I'll call it a pile of shite again. But that trial begins on the 20th of January, just around the time of Donald Trump's inauguration. What a remarkable coincidence that is. Another Take Out the Trash Day used, the second time that this has happened. It might be a coincidence, and I accept that. But now what has happened, and it's following on from the visit by Maya Tuzi and the visit by Dan Wootton, the police and the prison service are saying that people now who visit Tommy Robinson in prison will have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, so they can't tell the truth about what this man is saying. Think about that for a moment. And what they're worried about, they're worried about Tommy Robinson being able to coordinate a spreading of the truth during and shortly after that trial. That is what we are now talking about in this country. And you know, so many things I feel have come together at the same time. We now have political prisoners like the Soviet Union. We have a hostage in Tommy Robinson. They can now threaten to withdraw his privileges and bully those people coming into prison in order to protect Axel Ruder-Cabana from the allegations that are made against him. And those allegations, I think we all know what they are. And in fact, let's be honest, we all know the truth. It's just completely ridiculous that the police are prioritising the dishonesty in order to maintain community relations, something that drives me absolutely bananas. But think more generally about this country. Think more generally about what this says about policing, what this says about the Home Office, and what this says about the courts, and what this says about the prisons. What we've decided now, and when I say we, I don't mean you and me, I mean we as a country, to shoot the messenger. So we are not interested in the truth about what Tommy Robinson is saying. We're interested in personally besmirching him in order to stop him telling the truth. But also, we are now saying, let's take hostage the greatest working class hero for generations. Let's keep him in prison so we can bully him. So we can effectively, do we say torture? I'll tell you why we could say torture. Because we say, if you do not tell the truth, then we're going to withdraw your privileges. And that might mean that you are in solitary confinement for the rest of your prison sentence. Cruel and unusual? Question mark. That is what now is going on. And I say that this says something much more fundamental about Britain. Forget two-tier care. Forget the idea that there is one rule for one and another rule for another. There is now a massive campaign to deny the truth. I am not saying that everybody who comes to Britain from the Islamic world is bad. That would be ludicrous to say that. But why is it, once again, we're prioritising pretending that people are not converts? We're prioritising pretending that people are not motivated by Islamism, pretending that people are not inspired by Osama bin Laden in order to deny, in order to create what they see as community cohesion. And what it actually does is this. It upsets, it shocks, it offends ordinary British people. How many doors do you want to knock on to bully people over non-crime hate incidents? How many people do you want to put into prison for telling the truth about Southport? How many families of victims are going to be told to prioritise the protection of community relations over the actual truth of what has taken place with their loved ones? And how many times are you going to do it and it fail and you keep trying to do it? I'm not worried, and I've never been worried about the truth being subjugated. I've never been worried about any of that. I'm worried about a wedge being driven so hard between the police, so hard between the Home Office, so hard between the courts and us, that the police, the Home Office and the courts never recover. I don't think that David Atherton's going to get into trouble. I don't think Maya Toosey's going to get into any trouble. I'm not worried about Dan Wootton. I'm not worried about myself. I think that, frankly, Tommy Robinson's pretty hard. I think that what takes place here by these bullying, by these threats and by this torture is much more likely to do harm to the country and much more likely to do harm to the police than it ever will to do harm to the cause of freedom and decency. And so we look forward to the trial of Axel Rueda-Cabana. How much evidence will not be presented to the court? And by the way, when you say evidence is not presented to court, if you remember at Liverpool Crown Court, there was a very famous trial over Jamie Bulger, and some of the evidence was deemed too upsetting for the public to ever hear about. So it's interesting to see how much of the evidence will be too upsetting for the public to ever hear about. I think in the case of James Bulger, that was something that was legitimate. But in the case of Axel Rueda-Cabana, I just suspect that the reason that evidence will be suppressed is in order to protect the reputation of the police and in order to maintain those community relations. And where do we go with Tommy Robinson? Well, I'll tell you something. I made a video, I'll put a link in the description, to the top 5 laws that I would pass if I was Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And I have to say, one of the laws, if I was to have a 6th, would be the Free Tommy Robinson Act 2025, which is to say that he now should be given immunity from prosecution and that he should be allowed to leave prison because what he's done is not what's relevant. It's all about the message he makes. I would argue, and I've argued this before, that Tommy Robinson is useful for the Muslim community and useful for the establishment and useful for the police, because what he does, and by the way, this is called legitimate political debate, is he soaks up all the concerns of working class England, and indeed Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and he focuses that and intellectualises that and expresses that. And by doing that, it means that you are able to start dealing with the problems, or you can do what we're doing now, which is to deny it. And I say once again, we can't continue in this position where people go into police stations having committed an attack and say, I am doing it because I'm an Islamic fundamentalist, and the police immediately release a statement saying they did it as a result of mental health. This Axel Rueda-Cabana thing in January is going to be a circus, and threatening Tommy Robinson and threatening Maya Toosey and threatening Dan Wootton and threatening the entire media establishment with reprisals against Tommy in order to make that circus a circus, I think is unbecoming of the Merseyside police, even by their own low standards. Until next time, goodbye.